gentlemen, and all things in between, I am your host, Spood, coach of the Southtown Sandslashers, and you'll be joining me and my co-host.
Hello, my name is Cameron. I am the coach of the Ne'er-Do-Well Nido-Kings.
And we're going to be talking about the draft analysis breakdown of the 8 teams in the Diamond Division. We will be uploading this alongside 2 companion videos. If you haven't already, definitely make sure to check them out when you finish this one. We'll have the Pearl draft analysis with myself and Cabral, and you will also have the Platinum analysis with Cabral and Aurora. Thank you for joining me today, Cam.
Absolutely happy to be here. This is my first time sort of in the content pipeline for Double Dip Draft. I mean, it's technically the second time, but it's my first one with a competent mic, so we're just going to count this one.
Yeah, we're just going to fucking roll right through it. We got 8 teams to break down. We've taken our notes. We've had our morning brew. That's actually not true at all. We've been awake for a collective hour, probably. So
that's true.
I do apologize if you hear us getting a little too cozy and yawning, and stretching out. Then that's that's the rationale.
But that's draft. It is a cozy environment.
That's true.
You don't really have to stress or drink your coffee until you make it to playoffs.
I mean, to be honest,
playing ideas.
The impression that this gives me is the opposite of cozy. This is like a rise and grind type deal, where it's like, hey, it's like 8:30 a.m. and we're here, breaking down.
It is in fact time to get this bread. It is in fact time.
All right, well, let's get the ball rolling, man. Without further ado, we got our first draft of the Diamond Division. We have got Dumblespoods Army, coached by Scoots, my guy, Magoots. Scoots has had a absolutely stellar track record in the Double Dip draft. Very comfortably the second seed in the entire league, right behind IDM, of course. He came off of a round 1 playoffs loss last season, and the season before that, he was the winner. So Scoot stock still pretty high, pretty inflated. But I think definitely he would like to recapture that top 4. He hasn't had the best playoffs luck outside of his very deep runs. He does tend to get kind of backed off in round 1. So I think it's no question as to whether or not he makes playoffs, but I think the question really is whether or not...
What are the tools that he has to get there?
Yeah, I mean, can he land that top 4? Can he bring it back to that grand final spot? List off for me all the Pokemon he's got on his team for you.
Alright, so we have Mega Garchomp. We will get into the notes for that in a second, but I do kind of have a lot to say about that. We got Mega Garchomp, Superior, Weavile, Milotic, Stakataka, Centiskorch, Electros, Florges, Hitmontop, Valerian Articuno, Metang, and a personal favorite of mine, Zangoose.
Yeah. That's power. Especially, you want to talk about power, talk to me about Mega Garchomp's base 170 attack.
So, some people in the audience might not be aware, but we have a personal tiering council for our list. We don't normally go off of the popular sites such as the WBE and another another draft league that sort of escapes me at the moment. But with our National Dex format, that introduces Scale Shot to Mega Garchomp. So the biggest boon, I think, for sure, being that, the trade-off to Mega Garchomp is it has just absurdly explosive power, but losing that, I think it's base 15 speed, makes it all the more, killable than it was before. But with the introduction of Scale Shot, this gives this, already absurd power monster just, all the more access to destroy the rest of his team. And, I don't know,
yeah.
Just thinking about this thing, I'm really glad that it's not in my division. because
regular Garchomp, ever since Crown Tundra, because it's always struggled with not having access to Dragon Dance. But in Crown Tundra, or actually it was in Isle of Armor specifically, it got access to, like you said, Scale Shot, which multi-hit move, 2 to 5 hits, physical Dragon type move. That's great and all, but what it's really good for is it raises your speed by 1 and lowers your defense by 1 after using it. Which means, you get off a Swords Dance, you get off a Scale Shot, and suddenly, you're working with a doubled 170 base attack and a +1 base 92 attack. Suddenly, you're not really getting stomped by anything that can't, priority kill you, right?
Right.
You're basically only weak to Weavile at that point.
And people aren't really using Scale Shot to kill shit either. They're using it to clean up and get their speed boost. but 9 times out of 10 it's going to be clicking Earthquake, it's going to be clicking Stone Edge.
Yeah. And bringing up that Weavile is the counter to Mega Garchomp, Scoots cleverly also drafted that, which is a returning pick from last season, actually, where he was also running Weavile. And that thing has been really scary. You know, Abandoned Weavile punches through so much stuff, like Dark and Ice as an offensive type combo, even in OU, even in Ubers, to a certain extent, is absolutely bonkers. But Weavile, I mean, it's at least as good in draft, where, you know, you've got a lot of people's archetypes. Like, it's very important to have ground types running around. You know, Dragon Fairy Steel Core necessitates a lot of dragons. And Weavile just punches right through them with a ton of power.
And with the exception of Don't Drop That Dedennes, who I'm just going to refer from now on as Bananas, Weavile is splashable against basically every other draft on this, in his division. So
yeah,
he's going to get a lot of utility out of Weavile.
Yeah, you're just going to see it happening. And again, another Pokemon that benefited a bit from the move tutors in Isle of Armor getting access to Triple Axle. You know, it usually, you know, it used to run Icicle Crash, still does kind of. But just Triple Axle, as long as you hit all 3, it's just ridiculously powerful. So Weavile, you know, really good pickup. And there's kind of this, basically his top 3 are really offensive, right? Like his 1 S tier, his 2 A tiers, really, really, really oppressively strong, because the third one we haven't talked about is Superior, which, if you're not familiar, you know, it does have a level of utility. You know, it does like to sub and glare, Leech Seed in some cases. But for the most part, you're just going to see Superior spamming Contrary Leaf Storm, which, if you're not familiar, Contrary is an ability that makes it so that stat drops actually raise your stats and stat raises lower your stats. Which means, of course, moves like Leaf Storm that are really powerful but drop your special attack by 2 are suddenly now really powerful and they raise your special attack by 2. So Superior starts snowballing incredibly fast.
And in niche cases, should someone decide that webs would be the best way to slow down some of the, you know, some of the heavier threats like Zangoose and Garchomp, Superior just comes in and eats a +1 for its troubles. So
that's right. It's resilient. It's really flexible. It just does so much stuff. That having been said, you know, Scoots' lower tiers are not nearly as immediately offensively threatening. He's got a decent amount of bulk, you know, between Florges and Milotic. That's good, but they don't pivot. They just kind of come in, take hits, sort of reset to neutral. You've got Hitmontop, which a lot of utility, good spinner, good priority. I mean, it's like 1.5 million priority moves. Can generally scare out stuff that might scare out Weavile. Or, excuse me, it'll scare out stuff that'll scare out Garchomp, you know, like frail ice types that want to come in and, like, hit it really fast. Hitmontop can generally scare those out, and then, you know, counters to Hitmontop, like, you know, flying types or whatever, Weavile can scare those out. So, it's this kind of circular thing. I think Hitmontop is a really important part of the team synergy.
Yeah, I'm leaning toward agreeing with you. And even if, you know, at first glance his low tiers seem to be sort of, you know, lacking in immediate stopping power, or even possibly lacking in utility, you know, in the occurrence of Metang and Articuno Galar, something that is worth noting is that what these lower tiers do is completely shore up his type matchups, because he is positive or balanced across the board. He has no losing matchups in terms of type spread.
Yeah, I don't actually know if any other draft has this. Certainly not
no,
in this division. I don't think even in the whole league. Yeah, he's literally positive or neutral on every single type, which is ridiculous. You know, most drafts are at least a little like Rock Week, but not this one, man.
No, with you know, Stack Attack, Defensive Melodic, you know, Hitmontop. There's Metang, you know, with his Bullet Punch especially. Like, there is, like, he has answers to everything, even if some of them sort of leave a little more to be desired. Like I even now I'm looking at the draft and I'm not really sure what hole Galarian Articuno is supposed to fill, but I mean, God knows Scoots is going to show me eventually. So
yeah, I think, I mean, it has competitive, so it can kind of do what Defiant users do and scare out like defoggers. He's going to definitely want Rocks up most games, because just the top 3 of his Pokemon are so offensive, like so smotheringly powerful, that you definitely want Rocks up just to like punish switches and break sashes. So I think having rocks up is important. Although his only really good rocker is Stack Attacka. Like, you might run rocks on Mega Garchomp, but unless you're gonna have to gimp it somewhat to do that, right? Because usually, you want to run it like setup Sword Stance, Scale Shot, Dual Stab or something, or you want Fire Fang, or like Mega Garchomp has space in its kit for rocks, but it's not usually going to be as effective as a sweeper when you limit it to just basically 1 or 2 attacking moves.
Right, I mean, you got a muscle car here, you want to drive it, you want it to make some noise, you don't really want it to, stay in the parking lot,
Yeah, of course, you want to do your donuts and rev your tires and rip up the pavement. So
burn rubber, as it were.
Yeah, and Stealth Rock is clocking into your 9-to-5 job and sitting at your desk for 8 hours.
It's very, very basic shit.
Yeah, so, I feel like Garchomp probably doesn't run rocks that often. Metang, even with Eviolite, probably not going to be bulky enough to effectively utilize rocks, although I guess it's an option. So, I don't know, I would expect that Stack Attacka comes in place of rocks. And Stack Attacka, kind of a staple of Trick Room teams, which this is definitely not. So it's just kind of here to, I don't know, I guess put up rocks, maybe get a cheeky Trick Room, force some Gyro Balls on some stuff that's not expecting it.
Maybe it's a little ideal, but, it could be not only its own special Trick Room setter, but maybe get some mileage out of Custat with its naturally high defense stat.
True.
Maybe, that's there. That's something that could be done.
Yeah. I mean, it's got utility for sure in draft. It's not like it's a bad mon, but I don't think it synergizes necessarily well. Like, I would have preferred to see something like Prussel or just a really strong like hazard setter at the bottom here. But do not, do not let that fool you. This draft is ridiculously strong. I mean, I think it's really, really good. I think it's your classic Scoot shit. There's no frills, no gimmicks, no weathers, no terrains. It's all just, here's my good, strong Pokemon, and they will hit you until you die.
Yeah, no, that's about the long and short of it. Special mention, I think, should be given to Zangoose. Facade and Return should he decide to run a Banded. They're both legal in our league, and Zangoose by itself is normally already quite fast, especially with some of the slower drafts in his division. That I think Zangoose is going to really take it the distance.
Yeah, I think you definitely don't want to be caught slipping against like Zangoose or Galarian Articuno or anything, right?
Right.
I mean, even Centiskorch can get in there and just start Fiery Lash and shit. And it's hard to switch into that, the guaranteed defense drop just makes it somewhat difficult.
Right, definitely does complicate things.
So.
Now, you want to talk about uncomplicated, let's talk about the Crystal Cresselias coached by Skittles, because...
Yeah, that is true.
I am enamored with this draft. I'm over the moon about it. And I want you to explain why.
Sure. Well, it's hard to. Well, okay. How about I'll read the Pokemon and you tell me if you see a pattern. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Don't worry.
Tapu
okay.
Fini in S tier.
Right. Tapu Fini. Easy pick. Always going to be useful no matter what draft you bring it in.
A tiers are Mega Sharpedo and Suicune.
Big fan of the Mega Sharpedo, since obviously Suicune, can win just some drafts by itself.
Yep. B tiers are Politoed and Seismitoad. Cute little Raincore. Pretty nice.
Yeah. But I will say I'm starting to see a pattern emerging.
C tiers are Clawitzer, Golisopod, Ludicolo, and Amistar.
Yeah, no, Golisopod, got spikes, got your, first impression, got your priority. Ludicolo, really good rain sweeper. Amistar, Shell Smasher with weak armor, so it doesn't necessarily need the rain to perform. But why don't you close this out with the D tiers?
Bruxish, Dreadnought, Walrein.
So, upon first glance, there is a eagle-eyed viewers will have noticed that Skittles is running a mono water draft.
That's true. You'd think after 5 seasons, 5 whole seasons, I would feel like I've seen everything that people want to do. I've seen hard stall, I've seen commitments to weather, but my god, man, I've never seen a mono type team. And certainly I've never seen mono water. Although I will say,
and to his credit,
mono
water is the one to go with. Mono water, mono flying would probably be, your go-tos.
Yeah, and I mean he's done his due diligence, right? He's got, Ludicolo to take grass type hits. He's got Seismitoad to take electric type hits.
He's got Fanny to prevent his, sweepers from being burned or toxic.
Yeah.
That's something.
I mean, he has no grass resist at all.
No, not even one.
Thank God Rillaboom is not in this division, because Jesus Christ.
I know, dude. Omega 10-0, dude.
Yeah, Nick would be salivating, bro. Whitelope would be looking at this draft, just rubbing his hands like, oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just hilarious. You know, you look at the type spread, and it's like -9 to electric, -10 to grass, +10, though, against fire, you know, and ice, and water.
That's true. And I mean, like, the picks that the Cresselias actually ended up going with, like, Tapu Fini is one of the best S tiers, without a doubt. Suicune carries, it's so good. Just regular Scald, Calm Mind, you know, Toxic Sub protects. It just got it has so much garbage, right? I'm a Seismitoad enjoyer. I ran Seismitoad in my last season, and that thing, you know, is insane. Omastar, you got your Shell Smasher. Bruxish, you've got your Psychic Stab with, you know, Psychic Fangs to, you know, 86 of screens. Dreadnought, Swift Swim, you know, Walrein is, you know, fat, and, you know, covers the quote-unquote fire weakness.
Right, of course.
With, you know, that thick fat. I mean, like, I don't want to say this is like the best possible mono water you could have gotten, but I'm also not saying that.
It's pretty good. I mean, it again, surprisingly well-rounded draft, you know. It's got hazards, it's got speed control, you know, it's got the weather, right? It's got rain plus like a handful of Swift Swimmers with at least a decent amount of type variety. You know, you've got like a fast rock type, you've got, you know, fast grass type, fast ground type, you know, boosted by Swift Swim. You know, the only real issue I see for this draft is like his hazard removal. I mean, besides the obvious, you know, mono type weaknesses, it's like the hazard removal is pretty bad. It's just Fini's defog, and Fini's a good defogger, but I think he's gonna want to run boots a lot, probably.
Yeah, otherwise, and I think Fini, I feel like Fini's going to have to do a lot of work on the defensive side this time around. Because, you know, with Dreadnought, with Omastar, arguably with Ludicolo, with Seismitoad, like, there's no shortage of really good offensive water types, but in terms of defensive water types, he has Suicune and Fini.
Yeah.
And
but,
maybe Walrein.
Make no mistake, though. I mean, again, like, Suicune especially, like, if you were a Double Dip veteran, if you go all the way back to Double Dip Season 1, Your Best Elevator had a Suicune that legitimately 6-0'd multiple teams by itself, and I could see that happening again. You know, it's really surprisingly tough to stop after it gets off, like, a Calm Mind sub, you know? Especially, or you can do, you know, the Rest Talk Calm Mind, like, Surf or Scald or whatever, like... It's good, man. It's a good Pokemon, and I feel like a lot of these Pokemon, like, genuinely can just come in and start, like, putting that work in, you know? There's a game plan that's not always the same, you know? It's a solid draft. Genuinely, I think it's a solid draft. The only thing I think is kind of outclassed here is, like, Clawitzer hits really hard, but it also, you know...
Clawitzer is just not fast enough.
It's just not fast enough, yeah. It's... Allow me to, you know, say something controversial, but I think it might overlap in terms of its niche a little bit with some of these other picks.
Hot take, but I'm going to accept it this time.
Yeah. You know, Politoed, obviously being a rain setter, it's also, you know, it can, like, Perish Trap, right? A lot of people like to run, like, Whirlpool, Perish Song, Protect, whatever, to isolate Pokemon that can't break it and take them down. The thing is, you know, you see this draft team preview, and you're just going to literally slap all of your electric and grass types on your team, and that will probably beat it most of the time. But honestly, man, against drafts that have weak or no good grass coverage or electric coverage, this can win. This will win. I mean, I guarantee you, hard guarantee you, this wins at least one game. That's my promise.
I hope that this draft goes as deep as the ocean is that they used to pick some of these Pokemon.
Descend into the Mariana Trench.
I just want you to know I was sitting on that joke for a good 45 seconds.
That's beautiful. I appreciate the high effort.
That's what I'm here for. And closing thoughts for skills this draft. There are Pokemon that don't need rain to perform. Galactopod, good spiker. Suicune is Suicune. Seismitoad can be really fat. Omastar can get weak armor and Shell Smash. Dreadnought is not one of those Pokemon. It's not one of those Pokemon.
Right. It's I mean, even Mega Sharpedo can do well outside of range.
Yeah, like it gets speed boost before it gets strong enough. So throw protect on that bad boy. Psychic Fangs, Crunch, Ice Fang, Liquidation. It's got stuff. Got Destiny Bond too, which I feel like people don't let that sneak up on you because it will take 2 of your Pokemon if you're not careful.
Yeah, most certainly, I agree. Well, let's kind of ground ourselves, bring ourselves back to what a draft usually looks like with Claire's draft. Coach of the Maryland Manectrics and one of our better players again. Put up a strong showing. I believe last season got 4th, right? Lost the bronze match, but did advance to top 4. She's quite good. She came off of I think her most recent fight against IDM was a loss, but has beaten IDM in division multiple times, and that's worth its weight in gold. Generally,
and I'd say
a pretty strong performance. What's up?
I'd say with the last season loss to IDM, there was a pretty substantial crit. Crit Stone Edge behind screens on a +4 defense.
Yeah.
I don't want to say she was robbed by any stretch because IDM is literally kaiju level monster beast, but I think there is an element of luck there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and well, to self-indulge and to make it all about me, my record versus Aurora is 3-2, but really it should be 4-1 because I lost my game-winning Scizor to a turn 2 freeze. So we all have stories like that. You kind of just eventually it comes with the territory.
Right. That's sort of the nature of draft and sort of Pokemon as a bigger whole. It's you're just gonna get crit, you're gonna get burned by Fire Fang, you're gonna get flinched by Waterfall. The stuff that you do not want to happen is just gonna happen. That's just the way it works.
Can we have a moment of silence for Vincent, who lost probably the whole tournament, Season 4, on an Air Slash miss?
To be fair, as awful as that was, there was no reason for him to.
He should have clicked Fire Wrap. Yes, that's true. It was a misplay, but also come on, 1 in 20.
No, I sympathize for that in my heart, just not in my brain.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Claire, really good. Actually, to boost Claire's cred a little bit, we had a bunch of people enter the Draft League World Championship qualification tournament, and Claire is the only person in Double Dip that actually made a deep run. I think she went 4 wins to 2 losses or something like that. It was a double elimination tournament. She got relatively far on losers.
Very respectable. I think the only other person that's competed in leagues outside of our own is you and IDM.
Well, I mean, so the qualification tour, a lot of people entered, and we basically all went 0-2. Aurora went 0-2. Vincent went 1-2, but his only win was against Aurora, which is hilarious.
I
Scoots went 0-2. So, the only one who really did quite well was Claire. IDM did well in the actual World Championship. He didn't have to do the qualification tour. He just, qualified outright. And he put up a good show, man. He got, 4 wins. He was close to making it into, a playoffs bracket. So, kudos to him, but, this is just, this is the Claire show right now, and just to give people the context of, where Claire's performance is at, she excelled in the qualification tour, where basically everyone else floundered and failed, and no small part of that was due to her Psychic Terrain Poltegeist.
There is, what I'd love to believe is there's a few pairings that are synonymous with Double Dip Draft League. Let's say IDM and Screens. Let's say Woody and Camparaja.
Yeah.
And who I feel like is really spearheading that sort of idea is Claire and her Psychic Terrain Poltegeist. Because you can't go a day without her talking about this thing. It is so oppressive, so strong, and with Psychic Terrain, with the setup that she provides it frequently, it is just not unstoppable. And this time around especially, you've got Mega Diancie with Magic Bounce, or to set up its own rocks, you've got Buzzwole to sponge the harder dark type hits.
Yeah.
Obviously, in DD, mostly this time around, I feel like it's going to be relegated strictly to setting up Psychic Terrain, as it's the female version, so it has sort of, less raw stopping power than in DD male. But, this team, with maybe the exception of Wailord, which, is I love it, I love it in my heart, but again, in my brain.
True. Yeah, confluence of what is cool versus what is good. I guess to give a quick rundown of the actual drafts, I haven't done that yet. You know, S tier Mega Diancie, A tiers are Buzzwole and Thunderous Incarnate. B tiers are Indeedee Female and Poltegeist. Shouts out to the Psychic Terrain Poltegeist Core. C tier is Emboar, Quillfish, Steelix, and Tangela, and D tier is Audino, Avalugg, and Wailord.
So taking a look at the type matchup, the only two that she's negative on are, let's see, what is that? That's Ground and Psychic.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, the answer is for Ground. You know, Tangela, Avalugg, Thunderous, Buzzwole, like they are good answers to Ground.
Yeah.
You know, sort of in the same vein with Psychic. I mean, you have Audino, you have. Really, that's about it. I think the only type matchup that she would need to be scared of is the Psychic typing.
Yeah, and again, a little bit of a rock weakness, but that's basically universal. It's actually interesting that we're talking about like her ground weakness, because objectively, yeah, she does have a -1 on ground, but consider that that's with Emboar, Quillfish, and Steelix, right? Quillfish can intimidate and sort of mitigate that damage. Steelix is so chunky, it doesn't really worry about that damage. Mega Diancie, again, pretty chunky, so like she's really not that scared of ground types, because her answers are really good, but even the stuff that she's got that's ostensibly weak to ground, is still not that worried about it, or that integral to the draft. I would say, really, to me, this is like she drafted 10 Pokemon, and then Audino and Wailord are going to sit on the bench the whole time, because I just don't see them really doing anything.
Yeah, no, like Wailord, you're going to get, maybe you can get lucky stalling something really fat. I think Avalugg will get some mileage. I think it hits decently hard with Avalanche, and it's sort of like Steelix in a way, where its defense stat just wholly overcompensates for its typing.
It has Body Press.
Yeah, it has Body Press. It has Rapid Spin. Like I think you may be a little sleeping on Avalugg just a bit.
I didn't say that Avalugg wouldn't do anything. I said she drafted 10 Pokemon, and Audino and Wailord were going to do
Audino, okay.
I do believe that Avalugg is going to do well. I think it's because, I've had Regice on my team before, which is like the same deal, a defensive mono ice type. Of course, it's like especially defensive, but it did incredibly well. And I have no illusions, right, about how Avalugg is going to do. I think it's going to totally kill it.
An ice table very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, we love ice tables.
So far, it feels like, as I'm sitting here and I'm wanting to introduce the Hatchling and Aegislashers, a pattern has emerged. Every other draft in this so far has had weather, and Cabral, coach of the Hatchling and Aegislashers, turns that up to 11 by having not one but 2 different weathers on his draft.
That's right. We have seen multi-weather cores before. Specifically, last season, a lot of people were kind of dipping their toes into like having 1 or 2 weather setters. Specifically, I think Black Captain, which is the Martian Mantines, went kind of the hardest on doing a multi-weather core. I think
that's 3.
What Cabral has here, can you tell me exactly what he's drafted, and I'll tell you what I think.
All right. So for our S tier, we have Urshifu Rapid Strike. Our A tier, we have Goodra and Pelipper. Our B tier has Torkoal, Venusaur, Kabutops.
Kabutops C tier.
Kabutops B tier, right. 2 B tiers, 2 A tiers, 1 S tier. Our C tier, we've got Kabutops, Leafeon, Piloswine, and Galarian Weezing. And to round out the D tiers, we have Liepard, Shedinja, and Zebstrika.
Shedinja, my guy. Yeah, this is... again, not to like blow smoke up Cabral's ass, he's a close friend of mine and obviously a collaborator on this YouTube channel. He'll be editing this video. Hi, Cabral!
Hi, Cabral. Thank you for editing our video.
Thank you for doing that. I genuinely think this is probably the theoretically best multi-weather draft you could have. I think that Torkoal and Pelipper are both incredibly strong weather setters. I think they both have wicked strong abusers. Venusaur, obviously an absolute monster. If you've played any VGC in the last 2 years, you'll know that Venusaur and Sun is just so good. And in singles, it's still so good. Chlorophyll plus growth, just absolutely, maxing it. It's like a Shell Smasher with no defensive Coral, right? It's 1 turn plus 2 to both of your attacking stats.
And combo that with the buffed Weather Ball, giving Venusaur an effectively base 100 power fire move to complement the grass and the poison typing.
Oh yeah, it's crazy good. Leafeon also is kind of a sleeper hit. Very respectable, like base 110 attack. Also gets chlorophyll, so you can come in, like, slap a choice band on it, and it just starts running train, you know? Like, it gets in fast, and it hits really hard.
Part of me really wants to see, you know, Solar Blade Leafeon at least once.
Oh yeah, I mean, that'd be sick. Genuinely, like, other stuff on this draft. So this is the first time we've seen Urshifu Rapid Strike drafted in Double Dip, and it's about damn time, because this thing is so scary, and in Rain, it's even scarier. Tell me what switches into a Surging Strikes in Rain.
Basically nothing. You're looking at, like, Ferrothorn, which I don't even think is in this draft. Like, I think it's in Pearl Division.
I don't even know if Ferrothorn got picked. Let me go check.
Yeah, no, but even if it was Ferrothorn, I mean, you could just, I don't know, it's probably the least popular set of it, but, you know, Protective Pads is very worth using on a Pokemon that guarantees 3 hits on a single turn.
And, you know, it's a close combat, you know, it can spam close combat, it's got U-turn for some reason, you know? It's
Poison Jab to help deal with fairies, because I know Feeney's in this league that you might want to deal with. Like,
yeah, I mean, this thing is so bonkers. It's really, really strong, and I'm excited to just see it, you know, show up, have Pelipper, like, slow pivot into it, and just start reaping souls. Because just, my god, you can't protect in front of it. It's a multi-hit move, so you can't, you know,
rely on substitute to get through it.
Yeah, it's a crit every single time, so you can't even defensively, like Iron Defense up or whatever, it's just gonna punch right through it every single time. Urshifu's so good. Yeah, this is just a draft where, like, the Rain is strong and the Sun is also strong, and then his lower tier oh my god, excuse me. His lower tier picks are so money. Galarian Weezing, Pillow-Swine, so good. Shedinja also, you know, Shedinja, give me a little toot, like a hooray! Like, you know, blow the screen.
A little bit of
Shedinja!
Shedinja!
Yeah. This thing is good. In general, I think is just generally, like, a really solid low tier pick, because it forces people to do team building stuff in the same way that, like, Ditto forces some weird team building play. Shedinja, though, actually does excel a little more on this draft because of the nature of its weather. You know, a lot of times...
It will never have to run safety goggles. This is going to be a boost Pokemon all the way through.
Yeah, right? Because there's, like, 2 Tyrannitars running around, right? You know, there's a Hippowdon running around. They're not in this division necessarily, but, you know, in the event that this goes to playoffs or whatever, Shedinja, a lot of the time, is forced to run safety goggles to avoid, like, weather chip. But Cabral has both weathers that don't damage. You know, Sun and Rain will mitigate that weakness. And then suddenly you only ever have to run Boots or Sash, right, to get 2 hits. Or, like, the rare, maybe Protective Pads if you're worried about something with, like, Iron Barbs or whatever.
The only Pokemon I see here that might not get that much mileage is Substrika.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Leafeon, Galarian Weezing especially, sort of shore up, and Goodra shore up the ground weakness. And, you know, Sap Zipper could be nice, but, you know, he has Torkoal, Goodra, Venusaur, and, again, Galarian Weezing, like, aside from having the Volt Switch, I don't really see Zebstrika being... I think Zebstrika is the only Pokemon here that really doesn't have that much potential.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it has Motor Drive, Sap Zipper, Lightning Rod, so it's got some immunities that might be a little cheeky, right? Like, oh, I can switch this in and, like, eat, like, a random grass or electric type move that would otherwise threaten maybe Urshifu or Pelipper or whatever. But I mean, overall, it's pretty weak compared to the rest of his draft, which I think is stellar. You know, Liepard is very tricky, does a lot of fun prankster shit.
If the weakest Pokemon on your draft, you know, gives you 2 immunities, I mean, you could do a lot worse.
Yeah. And again, with, like, the type spread, you know, he's a little bit flying weak, but, like, people don't generally run flying offense that often. You know, he's a little bit rock weak, but again, it's hard to not be rock weak. The only thing that really stands out is, like, he's a little psychic weak. He's only really got Shedinja to help, like, you know, switch in on it and just, like, tank psychic attacks. That and Liepard, of course. But they're both, you know, you read them coming in, you hit them with one decently strong coverage move, and they'll just die. So.
Mm-hmm. So why don't you go ahead and introduce us the former user of multiple weather, Black Captain.
I would love to introduce to you Black Captain, the coach of the Martian Mantines, coming back for his second season of Double Dip Draft. He did run Multi-Weather plus Melmetal last season to okay, results. I believe he got 2 wins, which is pretty standard. I would say that you should aim to go 2-5 on your first season. And I do believe Black Captain. Yeah, actually, no, I'm looking at it right now. That's the overall record. So he did do that. So, like, good on him. And really, you can only ever, in my opinion, improve off of that going forward,
and based on the makeup of his draft, that is absolutely something that I think he has taken steps to improve on.
So, Mega Gallade as his S tier, Latios and Skarmory as his A tiers, Galvantula and Mindshao as his B tiers, Arctovish, Licky Licky, Magmortar, and Weezing as his C tiers, and Masquerain, Mr. Mime, and Whiscash as his D tiers. Mega Gallade has a reputation in draft for just being ridiculously strong.
Base 165 attack, and I can't really tell speed stat, just the formatting of the website. 110 is very respectable.
Yeah.
I mean, I normally would run like normal Gallade as a sort of AV for the special tank, but Gallade's coverage, Leaf Blade, Close Combat, Zen Headbutt, Earthquake, Knockoff, Poison Jab, like coming off of this monumental 165 attack power, it's gonna be hard to prep in any capacity for Mega Gallade. And anything like fairies that would normally want to threaten it out, like for Feeny, for example, you can just bring in your Galvantula that has Thunder. You can bring in your Weezing that has Sludge Bomb. Yeah. You can bring in your Magmortar that has in an ideal world that has Belch. But
well, yeah. I mean, Mega Gallade, even in, I think especially in this division, it's going to excel. A lot of players in this division have either a Psychic or a Fighting, or both, weakness. And you're just going to get eaten alive by that type combo. Latios is pretty generally good. It does well behind, screens, and, it has, that weakness policy, agility shit with stored power. But it can do other stuff, it can come in Specs, it can come in Scarf. Its stab combo really, really good. It's a good draft, I think, generally. The only thing, there's a couple of things about it that kind of stick out as a little weird, or maybe a little, repetitive from the team building perspective. I think Mindshao doesn't see a lot of use, because I think it overlaps Gallade's niche a bit. I mean, it has Regenerator and it can pivot, so that's good, right? But it kind of threatens out the same things that Gallade does, except Gallade hits the switch-ins harder.
Right.
Excuse me, my goodness. I apologize for that.
You've got the other things that are worth noting is I don't want to say random Arctovish, because it does sort of help the stats, the team's makeup a bit, but I don't really see Arctovish getting really any use outside of a Hail Draft, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's too slow to abuse its Vicious Rend, and without it, it's just kind of a worse, Lapras or Walrein, or, it's fine.
But that's all it is, it's fine.
Yeah, that's all it is. It doesn't have a lot going for it.
This draft, to me, feels like it's super lopsided. The good Pokemon are insane, and the bad Pokemon are gonna see little to no use, in my opinion.
I mean, he did cop, the worst water ground, but it's still a water ground, right?
Yeah, the worst water ground is still the worst water. It's still a water ground type.
Yeah.
And I mean, Magmortar, the recipient of the most heat set Dippy from Cabral last season, so obviously that Pokemon has some sauce.
Has a little bit of a
Galvantula, close personal favorite of mine. So Webs could help shore up that the slow Arctovish to get some of that Vicious Rend action going. There's stuff in this draft.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to close it out. Is there's stuff in this draft? Intimidate Masquerain. I think it actually does get U-turn. Quiver Dance.
Yeah.
Still die in one shot, but
that's
why you have support stuff.
Acknowledge Skarmory too covers Gallade really, really well, I think. Skarmory is just kind of one of those classic picks. This division doesn't have any mag Pokemon, so there's no Magneton, Magnezone. I don't think there's any Magnet pull at all, which makes Skarmory a real nuisance. to get around if you're trying to get in on Gallade and you're like, oh, I'm going to spam, like, I don't know, Ghost or Flying hits, and it's just like Skarmory just comes in and eats them up.
Eats that shit for breakfast.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think Black Captain's got a good thing here. I think this is better than his last season's team, but I think it does still have a few weaknesses or a few overlaps. Like I think maybe he would benefit from making 1 or 2 trades.
Yeah, no, I could. I think I completely agree with you. I think even if he doesn't end up trading, it'll take him about a week or 2 to really figure out the minutia of this draft.
Right. What
there is stuff here, but it's going to take some. It's going to take some getting used to. I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, hey, let's talk about someone else who takes some getting used to. I don't know, not a great transition. Hey,
so
we got the Canadian Cottonees coached by Milo Mega, and they have a pretty redonk draft. Let's talk about it.
This, the draft is ridiculous. However, special mention this has to be said.
Yeah.
Canadian Cottonees, brand new to the draft, their first season here. Love to have them. They had first pick in a pool of 24 competitors.
Right.
And they chose Jumpluff.
In a draft where up for grabs are things like Mega Gallade or Deoxys Defense or Zamazenta Crown, they grabbed Jumpluff, a D tier, as their very first pick, and as the very first pick of the draft. I think you specifically have a very special relationship with being the first draft pick. So I don't know.
I do.
Give me your take on that. Like, how do you feel about Jumpluff as a literal turn 1 pick?
If I'm new to this draft, if season 6 is my first interaction with Double Dip ever, and someone in a pool of 24 people picks a D tier Jumpluff as their first pick, no less, I'm packing it up. I'm going home. There's no way that someone brand new to draft comes in and walks out first pick with a Jumpluff and isn't just the Sigma male grind set, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, they've done it for the culture, right? Like, it's just literally, you show up and you're like, you slam your fucking dick on the table and you're like, I'm grabbing Jumpluff. Right? Like, round 1.
This is the impression that I intend to make. This is my mark. And honestly, just first pick Jumpluff is enough to make Canadian Cottonees one of the people that I'm going to follow.
Yeah.
This season. Like, their draft, for first pick Jumpluff, their draft is absurdly powerful.
Yeah. They've got... Well, why don't you break down the actual, like, literal draft for me?
Right. S tier, Volcarona. So that means that 23 people had to go twice before it was possible to get Volcarona. And I think this thing was drafted like round 4. So we got Volcarona in our S tier, Dragonite in our A tier. One of our other sort of more contentious picks, we have Dugtrio in the A tier because we did legalize Arena Trap.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Durant in our B tier. We have the male counterpart to Indeedee in our B tier. Our C tiers are Mega Ampharos, Inteleon, Shuckle, and Uxie. And our D tiers round out with Altaria, Armaldo, and the effervescent Jumpluff.
The eponymous Jumpluff. Yeah, this is a draft where maybe at a glance you're like, okay, sure. Like, it's a bunch of good Pokemon and, like, they just kind of do shit together. But I get the impression from Milo that they are going to just do tricky shit, Like, their MO from the jump, Luff, is basically to do things that are crazy and interesting. They've got specifically, I've got my eye on the Dugtrio Durant combo. If you're not familiar, there's kind of an old like Gen 5 era strat where you take Truant from Durant and entrainment onto another Pokemon, take a hit, eject button it's eject button into Dugtrio, which then traps the opponent who now has Truant, and you just alternate turns protecting and hone clawing until you're +6, and they can't switch out or stop you. That's a dope combo. Dragonite actually is really, really good. Volcarona, of course, being a little bit weak to things like water and ice. Dragonite, it is weak to water and rock. Oh my god, excuse me. Look, Dragonite can't take ice and rock hits. Okay, Volcarona also can't take rock hits. That is true. But consider that this is a Rock Week draft. The Dugtree is the only one that can do it.
Not much you can really do to get around that.
Look, I've been playing with the team a little bit. I've been helping Cabral lab it out because, Cabral's first match is the Canadian Cottonees. And this team looks goofy, and it is. Do not get me wrong. But it is surprisingly powerful. Like, Dragonite does do a really good job of covering Volcarona. Doug Trio, even without meme strats with Truant, does such a good job of revenge killing and forcing death on Pokemon, or at least forcing a Shed Shell. Shuckle is such a good hazard setter. It's always been just a remarkable hazard setter. Yuxie's a great lead. Mega Ampharos only needs a little bit of help to get absolutely rolling. There's stuff here. There's counter weather tech in Armaldo, Swift Swim, Jump Left, Chlorophyll. Inteleon is a little sneaky. Indeedee Mail is a little sneaky. There's stuff in this draft. I like it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think you've covered just about everything that I was also going to mention. The only thing I think I'd want to close with is the C tiers are money. Inteleon is, I think, such a great C tier pickup. With its speed, especially prevalent in this draft specifically, because it is, I think, the fastest Pokemon they have, don't they? Isn't it? Yeah, base 1...
Well, Jump Up's 110, I believe.
Yeah, but that's also a Jump Up.
Yeah, well,
Excuse me, it's a Jump Up.
It's a jump... Yeah, what? Don't say it like that. Look, Dougie's also fast. It's also 120.
That's true. I think Inteleon is going to be really nice for shoring up the stuff that would normally give Volcarona and Dragonite some trouble.
Yeah. It's
relatively the C tiers in this draft are just money. This draft is just money.
Yeah, this draft is money. It's cool. You did a good job. Congratulations, Milo, for being cool.
Already iconic in the double dip. In the double dip iconography.
I think if I was going to say one more thing before we scoot off, this is the weirdest type spread I've ever seen. Actually, several really strong resistances to common types like fighting or grass or, psychic, normal poison. This is a good draft defensively, as long as it's not fighting dark types, dragon types, fairy types, flying types. Ice types and rock types. A stunning -5 rock weakness, which I hadn't actually noticed before, but as I was looking through the draft, and I was like, well, Dragonite may be a good defensive Pokemon, and yeah, it's also rock weak, but, they've also got Doug Trio to take, rockets. So, again, it might be worth considering a little bit of trading to shore up that rock weakness, but still overall, I think it's a good draft.
Yeah, I agree. It's probably, I don't know if I'd go as far as say it's my favorite draft that I've seen so far, but it's up there.
My favorite draft is Skills. Sorry, Milo, but the Mono Water is ridiculous.
Skills is part of the culture, I think.
Yeah. I think this is also good culture. I think Milo just showed up and they just got it.
They immediately made their mark.
Yeah.
And as a big fan of culture picks myself, it gets my seal of approval.
Yeah. Good job. Thumbs up to you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Let's talk about our penultimate team in the Diamond Division. We have got the Don't Drop That Dedennes. Shout out to Bananas, the coach of the Don't Drop That Dedennes. Don't drop that Dantana. Hey. Great team. Bananas also joining us for his very first Double Dip season, although he does have a little bit of hands-on experience. He was coaching Nihilus, who played last season, to relatively good success. Nihilus actually had a pretty solid inaugural season, going 3-4, and actually being, even into Week 7, a playoffs contender for the, I believe it was the Armor Division. And I'm sure that was in no small part due to good help from Bananas, who now is rolling up his sleeves and jumping into the fray, and is going to start flexing his god gamer skills in the Pokemon Showdown arena.
So, brother, why don't you go ahead and start walking us through all of these picks, and then we can talk about them.
A man after my own heart, Bananas has drafted in the S tier Mega Lopunny, which, again, not to make it all about me, but I actually used Mega Lopunny in Season 1 and brought it all the way to Grands and then won. So Mega Lopunny by itself is one of those Pokemon that I feel does carry drafts a lot. It can be really oppressive to get around. And it does not stop there. The A tier picks are Aegislash and Rotom Heat. His B tier picks are Cobalion and Whimsicott. His C tier picks are Appleton, Golurk, Quagsire, and Skuntank. And his D tier picks are Ariados, Behem, and Frosmoth.
So, first thing that I think is worth noting, if I'm not mistaken, is Lopunny now no longer has to run a high jump kick with his fighting stab, because I do believe that the Crown Tundra gifted it close combat.
Shoot, did it? Damn.
Yes, I'm fairly certain that it did. And, you know, with that sort of revelation, it'll just win some games on its own. Like, I don't mean to, you know, pussyfoot around. Lopunny Mega is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
In drafts, especially, it's one of it. I feel like this is the definitive S tier Pokemon. Like every other Pokemon in S tier is measured against Lopunny, and I don't think that's presumptuous at all to say. Aegislash shores up the very obvious fighting type weakness that Lopunny has. Rotom Heat, I believe I used last season as well. I think it has a whole mess of utility. Mm-hmm. Cobalion is one of the 2 pivots that we've seen so far. Stealth Rock, Iron Head.
Inexplicably, it has Volt Switch.
for some reason, I can't even imagine why. Yeah. Whimsicott is super annoying, but that's its job. You know, Prankster with Tailwind with screens. Hits decently hard. You know, something that you would not really expect out of utility Pokemon. It's Stab Moonblast. Can reap some souls.
And it's fast raw. I mean, if you need to like get a hit off, like an important grass type or fairy type hit off, 116 speed is kind of eye watering. I mean, it's really quite strong. Mm-hmm. You know, it outruns like Latios in this same division, fairly comfortably.
And I feel like it'll also be a pretty safe answer to the Crystal Cresselias Tapu Fini, as well as, you know, the rest of their water draft. But nonetheless, we've got Appleton rounding out the sort of
Dragon Fairy Steel core.
Dragon Fairy Steel core, yes.
Because he's got the fairy and the steel, right? He's got, you know, Whimsicott, he's got, Aegislash, of course, and then you've got Appleton to sort of bring it all back around. He's also kind of got a Water Fire Grass core now that I look at it with Rotom Heat, Appleton, and Quagsire, which is honestly a little more powerful than his Dragon Fairy Steel.
I agree completely. Appleton isn't one of those Pokemon that you win the War of Attrition against due to Apple Acid. Golurk, Iron Fist, No Guard, Poltergeist, Dynamic Punch. I mean, one of the better rockers, one of the better pickups for C tier, I think.
Yep.
Quagsire is Quagsire. I mean, unaware water ground type. You know, tell me more. Tell me what more you'd want out of a C tier.
Say less, King. I mean, Quagsire is so good. It's literally just, it fits in all drafts all the time. It's just never going to be a bad thing to have.
We've got our Skuntank. Stench, I think it'd be hilarious. Aftermath is going to be the premier ability to have on it, though. You got your priority with Sucker Punch. You've got your, fire coverage to deal with the steel types. That would, assuming Lopunny and Cobalion are off the table, you've got something for there.
Yeah.
I do believe it gets Memento. So it could get in like a power-up punch set from Lopunny. It could get up like a Nasty Plot set for Rotom Heat. Ariados to set up webs to make
Quiver
the
Dance,
already
Frosmoth?
fast Pokemon.
Anyone?
Quiver Dance, Frosmoth, Ice Scales, hello.
Ice Scales actually does make Frosmoth. It's kind of a sleeper pick. Like, obviously, it's going to get ruined by like half the types in this game, but the ones that it's not ruined by, if you can get it in, especially on a Memento, and start Quiver Dancing up, I mean, it's really powerful. Like, Ice Bug as offensive coverage is just like really strong.
Combo that with the Giga Drain coverage it could get.
Yeah.
I think yesterday I made the sacrilegious take of it being one of the worst Quiver Dancers, but I do think that I'd have to give that to Masquerain over Frosmoth.
Well, I still think Frosmoth is better than like Butterfree or like Venomoth or anything, I think the only thing Butterfree really has over it is like Sleep Powder, which is important, but
I mean, it has what Butterfree has is Compoundized Hurricane. So even like a +1 Compoundized Hurricane is still going to do.
That's true.
Like a nigh guaranteed base 100 and something absurd power move with stab.
I mean, we can debate it, right? We can debate it all day. Yeah. I'm just saying, I think Frosmoth. I mean, even the worst Quiver Dancer is still a Quiver Dancer if you can get it to work.
Yeah, sort of like how no Shell Smasher, with some exceptions, belongs any lower than C tier, because a Shell Smasher is going to Shell Smash, and it's going to cleave through some tags. It's going to cleave through teams. I
mean, I recognize, it's kind of funny if you think back on it. I don't know how into like the leagues you were for like Sword and Shield when they were coming out. But when people realized that there was essentially like an ice-type Volcarona, everyone was so scared. They were like, oh my god, this thing's gonna be ridiculous. And then it really underperformed when it actually hit the, game, right? Like the competitive, like the Smogon. I mean, it had no chance in VGC anyway, but, it was really rough in singles, and so...
another, like, 10 base speed, and it would have been perfect.
Yeah, I think it's a good Pokemon. I think Ice Scales, you can really creep in there and randomly just tank a lot of special hits, and that can position you well enough to just start getting fast. I think it's great, complemented by webs, which are here, T-spikes, and just, like, generally, it has the support that it needs to maybe do well. That's what I think.
Yeah. Overall, I'd say for his inaugural season, I think Bananas did exceedingly well with his draft.
Yeah, I think it's really good. Again, I think that he, I would never want to veer credit away from Nihilus, who did really, really well last season and had a really good draft. But I do know that performance in that draft were certainly at least a little influenced by what Bananas has brought to the table. And looking at his own set here, it's kind of no surprise that he ended up with a good draft, in my opinion.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think that he's got everything he needs, right? He's got good rocks, he's got good defoggers, he's got good momentum, he's got good utility, he's got sweepers and cleaners and breakers, and he's got everything he needs. This is a draft that can fight any other draft and have a shot. So,
if you don't mind, I will go ahead and I will close us out with our last team of the division, the Primarina-H.
The Primarina-H, coached by Aelin. Shout out to Aelin.
Another person just now in their inaugural season.
That's right. Very first time playing in Double Dip. I know that she has some level of background in Double Dip, or not Double Dip specifically, but she has some background in competitive Pokemon, but it's relatively shallow. So she's a bit of a wild card. I'm excited to see where she can find some success.
And I think one of the beautiful things about Diamond Division is it has I believe it has the most amount of new faces.
No, there's
relatively speaking.
Actually, yeah, I mean, brand new people, yes. Diamond has the most.
Yeah.
All three seasons have all three divisions have 3 players that at least did not play last season.
Okay. So that was a little ambitious of me then.
Yeah, but I mean, no, you're correct, because it's you've got Bananas, Milo, and Aelin, whereas the other divisions, you've got Jason in Platinum, who has played before but didn't play last season. You've got White Loaf in Pearl, who has played before but didn't play last season. So no, you are correct that this is like the division with the most brand new fresh faces.
And as a result, I do think it's the best division for them to have ended up in. Mm-hmm. Because I think even against, you have a little bit of time to get ready for some of your harder matches. Mm-hmm. So anyway, let's get into this.
Okay, so her S tier, or did you want to do it, or do you want me to do it?
You go and do it.
Sure, I'll go and do it. Her S tier is Garchomp, regular Garchomp, so it does share a division with Mega Garchomp, which is kind of funny. There is kind of a funny dynamic, which is, back in the day, Mega Garchomp was considered OU by technicality, because people never wanted to use it because they all wanted to use regular Garchomp. Garchomp is one of those Pokemon that just really wants an item, and the power boost afforded by Mega Evolving just wasn't worth losing a Yachi Berry or leftovers or
a Life Orb.
A Life Orb, yeah. So Garchomp and Mega Garchomp are both S tier here, and they are both sharing a division, so that's very funny. She's got in A tier Breloom and Togekiss. She's got in B tier Pidgeot Mega and Primarina. In C tier, Ambipom, Doublade, Toxicroak, Zoroark, and in D tier, Absol, Lycanroc, Midnight, and Malamar. Malamar's sick, by the way.
Malamar is actually super hype, yeah. Malamar's hype, Ambipom is hype, and I'm a big fan of Toxicroak, even if some other people aren't. Mm-hmm. So things that are sort of surface level analyses, kind of ruined by ice. Like, if you lose Doublade, you lose your switch into most ice types, because, with Primarina it could be a switch into everything, but with as prevalent as Freeze Dry is on sort of the more offensive ice types of the generation, like, the only real stopgap you have is at Doublade.
Yeah, and Doublade also is relatively special weak, even though it's incredibly strong on the FizzDef side. It necessarily, it can take ice hits that are special, but not as many as you might think. And really, as a whole, Aylin's draft has some holes here and there, right? So she's got strong stuff, like Breloom, so good. Togekiss, again, one of those Pokemon that can just win by itself. You get good fortune with Air/Flinches. Really, really strong. But you start to see a bit of an overlap in, what purpose does, XYZ Pokemon serve? Like Toxicroak and Ambipom have a little bit of overlap, but different types. Togekiss and Mega Pidgeot are both kind of fast, special attacking, flying types. But Pidgeot's faster and gets No Guard Hurricane. Togekiss is slower, but it gets flinches and the fairy typing. And, basically, it's a complicated draft. I think that it can do really well. Certainly, Garchomp, Breloom, Togekiss, say less, right? Really
right.
good.
The pieces are all present.
But
it's just going to be a matter of navigating.
Yeah.
The very prevalent weaknesses that the draft presents at face value to really get the most amount of depth of this draft. So I think that for an inaugural season, this draft is quite solid. Mm-hmm. It's just in the grand scheme of things, it's going to take a little bit of guidance.
It's a high concept draft. I mean, it's a draft that certainly can excel, but you just have to play it so careful. You have to be kind of a brain genius. You have to play your Doublade perfect. You have to play your Primarina perfect. Trying to set up the field to be favored to you for a win, especially in a division which I think just as a whole has a lot of really strong, really powerful teams. You're basically, if you're Aylin, you have to become a mind reader. You have to not be afraid to make predictions, but you have to make those predictions correctly, offensively and defensively. You need to kill what's in front of you. You need to not die to what's attacking you. And
you need to set up for your win con.
Yeah.
Right out there. Right.
The problem is, there's you've got contingencies in other drafts maybe for losing one or two important team members. But for Aylin's draft, it's you lose Doublade, then suddenly it's oh no.
It's kind of a house of cards,
yeah, Ice suddenly goes ham, right? You need to keep your Primarina and your Doublade alive. You don't want to, get ruined by maybe Flying type or Rock type or something. And Doublade by itself has to do so much different resisting that it's just scary. It's scary to be a little Doublade, but it can still do it. Right? I don't want to be a naysayer to the draft and say it's bad because I don't think it is. But I do think, you have a couple of really important picks, especially defensively through, Primarina and Doublade. So you have to just play them perfect every time. And if you do, I think you win. But if you don't, then it's easy to get knocked down.
Yep. Corroborate, 100%. Honestly, I think that clears it done, right?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that is the Diamond Division of Double Dip Draft Season 6. You and I are going to be doing the ongoing coverage, so, pick a team, say it's your favorite, and, get ready to start analyzing matches. Week 1, we got some really exciting stuff in Diamond Division. I believe it's, well, let me have a look and see what the actual Week 1 matches are, and we can sort of touch on, what to expect a little bit. So in Diamond, we've got Primarina-H versus Maryland Manectrics. That's Aylin versus Claire. We've got Slinging Aegislashers versus Canadian Cottonees. That is Cabral versus Milo. Dumblespoods Army versus Martian Mantines. That's Scoots versus Paul, or Black Captain. And we've got Don't Drop That Dedennes versus Crystal Cresselias. That is Bananas versus Skittles. I'm really excited for Bananas versus Skittles. I'm really excited for Aylin versus Claire. Honestly, I'm really excited for Cabral versus Milo. Scoots versus Black Captain. I love Black Captain to death. He's one of my favorite people. Shouts out, Paul. You're the bomb D. But man, Scoots is scary. He's gonna have to do a lot to make it work versus Scoots. That's I have to fight IDM week 1. Oops.
Yeah. Scoots being the second seed is still the first seed in his division.
Yeah.
By far and away. Claire is sneaking up on him. I think Claire is 4th seed or 5th seed overall, something like that.
Yeah.
So, having to run up against Scoots and Claire, the adversaries in terms of week 1 is a tall order. But luckily, this is if you're gonna have an opponent like Scoots or an opponent like Claire, this is the week to have them, considering the week and a half time that you get versus a normal week.
That's true. I mean, Scoots is going to be a little rustier than Claire even because, again, Scoots did enter the qualification tour just like myself and Claire and Aurora. But, Scoots went 0-2, and Claire absolutely put on a clinic, beat like 4 people. So, and she's got a very similar draft to what she brought to the qualification tour, at least as far as, like, Poltergeist plus Psychic Terrain. So, I don't know. I'm just excited to see it. I think that there's some exciting matches coming up. I think that we're going to see a couple of breakout performances, and I don't know if I can predict what the top 4 is going to look like going into playoffs. I think that... it's going to just depend a lot on, like, the performance of, like, Milo, Black Captain, and Bananas, But, hey, I think that's the drafts. Once again, please check out the companion videos to this. They should be going up at the same time. You can join myself and Cabral for breaking down the Pearl Division, and you can join Cabral and Aurora as they break down the Platinum Division. Thank you for joining me, Cam. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad that I can finally contribute to DDL in a meaningful way outside of, farming best coach dippies.
True. Trying to get the hat trick this year. Shouts out.
Shouts out.
Thanks for watching, and we will be seeing you guys next time.
Bye-bye.